Episode 8, One Big Team podcast. Could not be more grateful. I'm in a state of joyous anticipation, and I'll let Rick, my guest, Rick Sessinghaus, talk about what that means here in a bit. But to have Rick Sessinghaus, someone who I've looked up to for a while, on the podcast, very grateful, very excited. Rick, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. This is going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been fortunate to look at your path as a coach and as a leader in this space and learn a lot. But for the listeners who might not be familiar with you and your work and your career, would you mind giving us a background to how you've ended up here today?
Sure. Long story short. So I grew up in Burbank, California, just outside Los Angeles, still live here, and grew up in a very sports-minded family. So I was playing baseball, basketball, football, tennis, and then I got into golf. And then ended up just getting hooked on golf and started playing competitively when about 16 or so. Ended up walking on at Cal State Northridge Division I school in the Los Angeles area. Mediocre Division I player. I was a hothead, little frustration issues, which we may get into. And I just loved golf so much, I became a coach. So I'm a member of the PGA of America. I've been coaching golf for 30 years now. And part of that led to understanding performance, went back to school, got a doctorate in applied sports psychology, wrote a book, writing another one now. And then the last 4 or 5 years, co-founding a company called FlowCode, which is creating these tools, techniques, and frameworks to take somebody from a fear state to a flow state. And being able to work with all kinds of athletes. A lot of people know that I'm Collin Morikawa, who's one of the best players in the world. I've been his coach since the age of 8, all the way up till now he's 27 years old, 2 major championships. So that's been a heck of a ride there. So that's a little bit about my background.
I love it. I want to get right into defining a fear state, defining a flow state. I was listening to one of the podcasts that you were on the other night, and the simplicity that you're able to describe these states of being in is so powerful. And I would love to just start there. Can you talk about what it is to be in a fear state, what it is to be in a flow state? And I know that it's going to help so many people who ever listen to this. So I want to dive right into it.
Sure. And no, thanks for the question, because when I look at the mental skills, a lot of people are not quite sure what they are or what they lead to. And I've tried to simplify it that I believe that performance is state dependent, mentally, emotionally, and physically. What state are you in during your performance, whether that's a golfer, whether that's a singer, so on and so forth. And that state, I break it up into 2 major ones. There are a lot in between, everybody, but how often have we experienced stress and pressure, anxiety that we know interferes with our performance? So I label that as a fear state, right? We're in the future, we're worried about what's going to happen. It's a threat environment that creates literally a stress response, fight, flight, or freeze. My body feels different, it performs different. Well, that's one, but I believe all of us have also experienced a flow state. When we're at our best, we perform our best, we feel our best, we're immersed in the present moment, time flies by, and we're confident we can do something. And it used to be called the zone, but now fast forward, it's called a flow state because we can actually research it. We have the brainwave activities and all the brain chemicals and everything. So it is a state that somebody can get into. So I look at trying to compare and contrast those so somebody can go, oh, you know what? I can tell when I get into that anxious fear state and I don't perform well. But that's where they leave it at. They don't have a solution to take them out of that. Yeah. And then with flow, I want them to understand that we've all done it. We can get into that state more often. What triggers that? What can we do to train that? So fear state, a lot about anxiety that creates a stress response. Flow state is about when we're at our best and we feel our best.
I love it. Yeah, that's a beautiful, simplistic framework. We have a similar one. You probably heard of signal lights, green, yellow, red,
sure.
When you're at your best, when you're in the middle, and when you're at your worst. And being able to give that gift to young athletes, I know you're passionate about working with young athletes, is maybe one of the most rewarding things that we've been able to do. And they go, yeah, I think I could get to the green more often. I got a question. So I'm on the golf course the other day, and after listening to some more of your work, I realized someone who understands this pretty well. I go, man, the whole front 9, I was in a fear state. I was so tight, man. And how does that happen? How do we even end up in a fear state when we're going out to play a sport that we love, whether it is golf or tennis or lacrosse? Like, how do you even get there in the first place?
Well, the first thing is that, and this is the psychology of fear, is that something in our environment is triggering a threat. Okay. Now, you and I both know us playing golf, we should always be in this great mood. We're playing golf. But how do we view? So I talk a lot about association and meaning. How is this round of golf? What's the meaning I'm putting behind it? Now, golfers, I believe it's a very vulnerable sport. And it's easy to be self-conscious. How does my swing look? I hope I don't mess up. I'm playing with my friends for a few dollars, right? It gets away from the playing and it gets away with all the things that could go wrong. And then we want to protect our ego. We want to protect, I hope I look good. And then, yeah, we went to play golf, but inside our head, we looked at each shot as a threat, the front nine. And then we play poorly on the front nine. We go, well, it doesn't matter now. And then we play really well in the back because we've lost the attachment of what it means. So it could be a shot, a specific shot over water. It could be who I'm playing with. But when the environment creates a threat in our mind, we will create a stress response.
And you talk a lot about, is it a threat or is it a challenge as one of kind of the initial steps to help get you moving towards a flow state? Can you talk about that perspective, threat to moving into it being just a challenge?
Sure. Yeah. And I think this is a lot of the research was taken from like public speaking, which a lot of people would have an inherent fear of public speaking, of how they're going to, don't mumble my words, how, people. And they took these public speakers and gave them some interventions. But one of the main ones was, how do you view what's going to happen? And again, if it's a threat and they're self-conscious, again, stress response. But I can still be nervous and perform at a high level if one of the main things is I create a different association that, you know what, this is a challenge. And I'm the type of person that takes on challenges. So great, bring it on. High level players would prefer to have challenges than things being boring and easy, by the way. Okay. It's just how we're going to frame it in a new way. So the threat could be something new, but a threat could also now be a challenge that hey, I'm ready for. And I talk a lot about identity, is like, I'm the type of person that takes on challenges.
Yes.
Now can be a tie-in with that.
I love it. Yeah. To me, I hear some of those skills with framing and your self-talk and then your focus, and then that leads to a flow state. And for me, it's why we're so passionate. We call the language of mental skills, and giving young people and coaches this framework to understand, hey, there's a software that we can understand to help us and get more out of the experience. And it's such a beautiful thing. One of the aspects in your program around at the result. So in golf, right, you've hit your shot. Now you're in the result phase of assessing it. You talk about being curious and detached from the outcome. And this is, I love the concept of detachment. I think for a lot of people, especially young people, it's like, okay, can you talk about curiosity and detachment and why that's a great strategy? Like, hey, you want to be a better performer? Become curious and detached from the outcome.
Sure. So this was the make or break in my golf career. Was I actually was a fairly focused performer or golfer. I was a fairly confident golfer. I had a very difficult time in reacting to my shot, to a round of golf, to the results, right? And back then, this is 30 years ago when I saw a sports psychologist, it was a lot of, well, just forget about it. And that never resonated with me, because forget about it, one, is impossible. It happened. In fact, I put so much emotion into it because it mattered. So memory's built a lot on emotion. So guess what? I'm remembering it no matter what you tell me. So I go, there's got to be a different way to look at this. So now that, through my own journey, it's very easy to be critical. That's a bad shot. That's a bad swing, Rick. You stink. Oh, that's easy. But I was never getting better from it. And athletes want to get better. So then I shifted and go, okay, what can I learn from it? So that led to curiosity. So curiosity to me is a superpower, in that if I'm viewing it in such of, wonder what just happened to make the ball go to the left, when I intended it to go over here to go straight, to me, that's a much better frame of question. It's not forgetting. In fact, I can learn from that. In golf, we look at patterns of golf shots all the time. Okay. I'm also looking at behavioral patterns. Okay. Do you make the same behavior under certain circumstances? I would never learn any of that because I never asked those questions. So curiosity is about learning, why did that occur? What could I do differently if I was given a mental mulligan or another shot? And sometimes it is a swing. Don't get me wrong. I'm a swing coach too. There is cause and effect and physics involved, everybody. I get that. but I'm going back to, could I have made a different decisions? Could I have committed more? Could I have been regulating my relaxation response a little bit more? Could I have done anything differently? To me, is a great way to learn. Okay.
Yes.
Now, that's one thing. Detachment, that's probably the hardest things I would have to teach anybody, especially high level performers, right? And people misunderstand the word detachment. They think I'm saying don't care. I'm saying, in fact, you care. So that's why you're going to do your pre-shot routine and you're going to do your preparation. You're going to do everything in your control to be at your best. So that's a result. I get it. But once I've done that and I've struck the ball, it's out of my control. I want to view, we call it an observer mindset. Can I just observe a ball in the air without reacting and judging it? To me, that's a form of detachment. Doesn't mean you don't care. In fact, that data point of where the ball is going is actually important, but it's from a much different lens and filter than just good, bad, horrible, awful. Well, instead of, wow, that ball went left, I wonder why, maybe next time I could do this. To me, that's still in a way being detached because I'm not reacting to it so quickly,
Yes.
but I'm always learning. But that one's a tough one because people think it means don't care. And I said, no, that's not about that at all.
Yes. One of the things that I enjoy when I'm coaching and also exploring for myself is, what are the physical sensations associated with this way of thinking? Can you talk about how being in a fear state, being in an overly critical mindset manifests into maybe the grip pressure or the tempo? And that goes in any sport, right? We're just using golf mainly as the vehicle here. But how does that way of thinking, that state, show up in performance?
Exactly. So that's where I think I made the biggest jump as a coach, honestly, was swing coach, especially in golf. And you can look at this now at every sport because it's now being measured with 3D and video. And we got all this cool analysis tools. There's not a lot of mystery now, biomechanics, what's going on. So people get lost in, well, it's just the golf swing. I'll just repeat it. And I said, yeah, but when you're repeating it on a range setting, for instance, we would call that more a closed state. You probably going to perform at a different state because there's no attachment to the result. There's no consequences. Thus, you may play better golf. Okay. Now I take somebody on the golf course and they notice they're not getting the same results. They're going to say, oh, I got to work on my swing more. I go, no. You just told me your swing's fine over there. The state changed because the environment changed and how you perceive it changed, right? So that's where, when now we connect mind and body, and I love what you said earlier about kind of software programs, because I kind of go about that too, is I can buy the most expensive laptop in the world, okay? And if I run programming on it that has a virus on it, that laptop is useless, okay? So I can be training and my physical body's great, but now I am terrified to hit this golf shot and my grip pressure clenches it and I steer the club and I don't go left and the ball goes 100 yards right. That was mental before it was anytime physical. So I'm always trying to connect the mental to the physical, and a fear state of fight, which is I'm going to get tight, or flight, I got to get the heck out of here, or sometimes we have freeze, will affect your golf swing. It will affect your presenting and your singing and all those type of things, because now the hardware is going to suffer through poor software program. So that's what I'm trying. And I like what you also said, is that I also want to flip it to where, what is somebody feeling physically when they're at their best? And you might have a lightness, you may have a freedom, you may, whatever their word is. And now I'm trying to have that be a trigger for them in the future.
Yes. I am super optimistic about the future. I choose to view the world through that lens. I am super passionate about teaching student athletes these things, but I also see the utility for everybody. And I do feel a great sense of urgency, as I'm sure you do, to make the world a better place. In regards to being in a fear state and how it manifests for just someone living their day-to-day life, like, how many people are probably more in that state than they realize versus the opportunity to be in a joyful, grateful, super heightened flow state?
I mean, it depends on what research you read, but high majority people are stressed and anxious. I mean, I do corporate work, and you see these leaders saying, my team members are stressed, they're anxious, they're overworked, and of course that's going to affect their productivity and their performance, right? So we know it's ratcheting up and more and more. Obviously, COVID a few years ago kicked it even more. We can now here in the States, and actually anywhere, the political realm now, what's going on with politics. There's certainly things that could remind you that we need to be on alert. Don't get me wrong. This is not about everything's great. I'm very optimistic too. And optimism is actually a form of a flow state, by the way, too. We know we can do something to improve, and things that under my control, I can lead to better results. So I think we live in environments that we're reminded a lot of threats. Okay. I live in Los Angeles, and going on the freeway, there's constant stimulus and constant people cutting you off and stuff like that. People on their news feeds, people in their social media, there's a lot of reminders that are triggering them. That you and I both know we can train the opposite side too. We can listen to podcasts like yourself. We can have an environment that now reminds us of all the great things that are in the world, right? But people have now programmed themselves for that stress, and it almost keeps them I don't want to say alive, but I have some people who are addicted to stress, I think.
Yes.
It makes that heart's pumping, that they feel like I'm alive. It's like, yeah, but you have other choices you could be doing here to not overwhelm that system.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. And I do want to spend the vast majority of the rest of our time together talking about all of the good strategies to get into a place of flow. And the word relaxation. And I know for myself, I'm 31 years old, and it took me to get to a heightened level of stress. It also took a really poor health diagnosis that was unrelated. It was a genetic thing with my heart that forced me to slow down. And now relaxation is like, that's my thing. Like, I love it, and I do the non-sleep deep breaths, yoga nidra every day now. And I'm trying to be as chill and relaxed as possible. What's so fascinating is whether it was the society and culture I grew up in, sports, I just thought, man, if I'm moving fast, I'm being productive. Like, it's the way to be. And, I just find myself, I'm so much more productive, so much more powerful, so much more helpful to people in the world when I'm in a state of relaxation. So can you talk about the benefits of having a relaxed nervous system? And maybe I think we need a little bit of a rebrand, because if you said, hey, man, I think you should relax more, 5 years ago, I've been like, okay, Rick doesn't know what he's talking about. But now I'm like, great advice. Thank you.
Right. No, and I think we're all going to use different words. Like for some, relaxation is different than calm. I might be calm. I might be relaxed. I might be, composed. Right. I think we have to start from somewhere in there. And then depending on what we're doing, like if I'm speaking in front of a lot of people, I'll be honest, I'm not relaxed. I'm energetic. I'm pumped. I'm ready to go. Yet there's a calming of my nervous system. So I love that you brought that up. That now has the mind and the body and the heart all coherent for the directive of my intention, right? Relaxation is a great tool because most of us are too amped. Okay, we're too much in the sympathetic nervous system. We're stressed, we're anxious, we're worried. Relaxation is on the other side of that spectrum. And with flow, the research on flow is that there is a struggle phase. So flow is not about things being easy, everybody. It's actually, there's a struggle of learning something new, challenging ourselves just a little bit more. And then we kind of release that, and then we get into a flow state. But afterwards, there is a recovery phase, right? We're learning so much now more about recovery in athletics, okay? And all the different tools that are out there. I have an infrared sauna in my office. There's cold plunges, there's breath work, there's different things that are going to help you recover mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so back to like relaxation, I think most people need to train that in their day-to-day. It could be as a way to, I call it priming the day ahead of you, knowing you'd rather be relaxed. And then at the end of the day, when maybe you're holding on to some stress, to be able to be aware of that. But there's so many tools to be able to utilize. However, it all starts with self-awareness. What am I experiencing right now? And do I need to be relaxed? Do I need to tap into those breath work? Do I need to tap into a walk around the block with my two big dogs that I have that sometimes gets me out of my head, right? I think a lot of people just need, and I say it's basic, but it's actually the most challenging skill, is self-awareness.
Yeah.
What am I thinking, feeling, and doing right now? Because
Yeah.
so many people are they're so habitual and so reactionary. It takes them a few hours to go, I'm stressed. It's like, yeah, but what triggered your stress was 3 hours ago, and you did nothing about it. So
someone's listening to this right now, they're driving, and they're like, all right, this is starting to click, making sense. Rick, tee them up. What can they do right now while they're driving without pen and paper to build some self-awareness to then give some steps going forward?
Yeah, so we go back to like some basic mindfulness questions. How are my hands feeling on the steering wheel right now? We weren't aware of that before I said that. Okay. Now, are they at the classic 8 and 12 or what, 8 and 2? How tight are you holding on to it? Okay. Now I'm aware of that. Okay. Are you aware of the air conditioning coming onto your face right now? Okay. So those are mindfulness questions to bring us in the present moment. Then it could be, how am I feeling right now? What am I thinking about right now? Right. Because when we're driving in traffic, we tend to be on autopilot anyways. And now those self-awareness questions is part of this. I use music a lot as a trigger. And so I can use everything from classical music to my favorite rock band, Guns N' Roses, and I can change my state using sound and using music as a trigger, instead of listening to the news and getting more more stressed on what's
More scared. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. I think I don't know if you're familiar with, what now is being called non-sleep deep rest, yoga nidra, which is essentially deeply guided meditations all about getting into a super relaxed state, and then the really detailed body scans. And I picked it up. I lived in San Diego this spring, and I went to about 3 yoga nidra classes a week. And it really, I noticed, we do it for an hour, we come out of this super relaxed state. I go coach, I live my life. I go, I like the way I feel. I notice a little bit of state change. It's becoming more of a consistent trait. This is good. And then over and over, I'm doing it more and more. But now I'm realizing, wow, this skill set has allowed for me to, what you just said, being aware of your fingers and the grip pressure, the tension in your shoulders, the breathing pattern. It becomes just normal operating once you start practicing it. And what are some of your thoughts there? I can see you probably are churning.
Yeah, because I think when we train a new skill, it's very conscious at start, right? We know it's conscious incompetence. I know I need to work on being relaxed. I do my 1 hour breath work, and then a month later, I need to do only 30 minutes. Then I only need to do 5 minutes. And then before you know it, it becomes a default mode when we need it. And that's kind of the cool part, right? This unconscious competence, we're actually now more relaxed. We don't know, how the heck did I do that? Oh, because every time I get in the car, I put my favorite music on and I take 2 smooth breaths. That's normal now. And I've reset that's my new habit, right? It starts with some struggle, an hour class and learning new things. And then it shrinks it down. And now you know that that's a tool that you're going to have the rest of your life. Now, do you still have to practice it? Of course you do. But you've seen the value of it. Okay. And that's a lot of people, you have to work on mental game. It's not, hey, take 2 deep breaths and it solves your problems. In fact, it doesn't. But could I do a certain breath rate of inhale, exhale that does actually, for those next 20 seconds, change my state a little bit, just a little?
Yeah. Yep.
To me, that empowers somebody to want to take more control instead of being reactionary.
One Big Team podcast is powered by Mabry Academy. We are the leaders in comprehensive player and personal development. We are experts in preparing you today for where you want to be tomorrow. We have 2 big programs. We have our lacrosse program where we run comprehensive one-on-one long-term coaching, college roadmap program, and the best group training in the country, specifically right here in the DMV area. And then we also have our mental performance department, where we also work in a one-on-one capacity with teams, schools, and club organizations. And we have multiple virtual programs that you can access right now. Please check out MabryAcademy.com if you are looking to up your game and take it to the next level. Appreciate you. I can clearly feel through Zoom how passionate you are about teaching these things. And I'm so curious, and I guess you could answer this in 2 ways. One is like, what mental skills would have done the most for you when you were in college or, as a young adult. But then the other one too, I'm curious, I'm 31 years old and I have a very good feeling that you are a consistent learner. You're learning now more than ever. How much have you grown since you were 30 years old? Like, I'm inspired by everything that you've done in your body of work. And I'm curious, how important is growth to you? And, again, there's kind of 2 questions in there, just about like what you needed and then how you've grown.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. What I needed back then was a mechanism to learn, so be more curious, it was easy growing up. My dad was a football coach, where it's easy to say what's wrong with something. You did a bad job with that interception. That was bad. That was bad. That was bad. And that critical voice was in there. And I would be very hard on myself. I wasn't a perfectionist, but I work with a lot of athletes who are, and it's either I'm perfect or it's a failure. And I think to me, there's a gray area in all of this. I wish I would have seen the gray area back then and being able to go, even though I three putted, even though I, let's say, choked on a putt, there was something to learn from it. I honestly never learned from it. I just got emotional. Frustration and anger ensued. And unfortunately, that became my default emotion. So back then, and that's why I'm passionate about this, I needed a way to regulate emotions. Not saying be positive, but say there's another choice I have there. I can be disappointed instead of angry. Oh, I didn't know I had that option. Now I do. And that's what I'm passionate with, helping all golfers, all people, but juniors especially, and saying there is another option here. Okay. And I think as we keep escalating in life and we bring on more challenges, I'm 53 years old. I've been married 27 years. I have 3 kids. They're all older. There's other challenges when you're raising kids. And when I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, I've had my own business. It has not always been smooth. Okay. It's kicked me in the fanny a few times. So as we experience more things, we realize we have to up regulate or up level our challenges our skills to meet new challenges, which is a basic flow technique, is challenge, skills, balance are there. I don't want to just sit on my butt all the time. Okay. To me, there's now no challenge. It might feel good for a day, but that doesn't bring life to me. I think we're here to keep, I don't like the word pushing, but I think evolving into the best version of ourselves based on all these other experiences that we're having. So I am constantly learning. I'm constantly adapting for my own, but then I'm so fortunate that I get to help so many people with their own challenges that I better have more tools in my toolbox to help them also.
When you started your coaching career 25 years ago, could you have imagined, if someone could say, hey, in 25 years, you're going to be running this organization called FlowCode, teaching about the brain? What do you think, Rick? Is that possible for you? Is that so far off the beaten path, or did you have visions of serving a massive community and helping people change the way that they experience their game and their life?
I had a vision, so I'll be honest with you. I did have a vision. It has failed 2 other times before FlowCode. How about that? So it's something that has been with me is to, if the business people out there know about, you want to leverage things, right? You want to leverage your time, leverage that. That's a business side. But it was more about, I want to make an impact, and going through the mental game skills or lack thereof as a former athlete, and knowing that, and I believe it to this day, it's an industry that's still untapped, is that I know you and I can help so many people realize that how they train focus and confidence and emotional regulation and stuff is going to help them on and off the field. I just know there's a need. So that's been something within me, because I needed it, that has been driving me for a long time.
All right. So you mentioned you grew up the son, the football coach. It was very easy for you to identify what was going wrong.
Correct.
So when I started my golf journey, and I mentioned to you over email, I got diagnosed with a rare heart disease, June 2021. I left the hospital. I bought clubs because the doctor made like kind of a joke. He said, hey, you can't lift weights anymore. You can't run, but you can play golf and do yoga. And I was pissed because I intentionally didn't play golf because I knew how much time it took. And I said, all right, I'll be the best. Yeah, I looked at him and I said, well, I was very obsessed with my coaching development. So I said, I can't spend 4 hours on a Saturday. I need to coach. And I'm grateful that I did that at the time. And I looked at him, I said, I'll be the best golfer you ever met. And he looked back and said, thank you. He could care less. And I left, found the golf store, went there, bought clubs, and basically in tears went to the driving range. And I started practicing relentlessly, studying every video. And it was a way for me to try to, unhealthy looking back, to process this information, but also to practice what I was preaching, because I never learned mental skills. Everyone has them. I had some really good ones. I just didn't know what they were. And now I was like, wow, this is a completely new environment for me to practice what I preach. Became obsessed with it, and I loved it. One of the strategies that helped me so much, and I would like for you to unpack why it helped me so much. Got it from Dr. Bob. It was, don't focus on what you need to do better while you're on the course. There's a million things you can do better. Even the best golfers in the world can do better. focus on what you're doing well while you are actively playing the game. After the round, you can reflect. So what I began to do was during my rounds, I kept a notepad, and every time I'd walk to the next hole or take the cart, I would just write down what I did well. And if I, got a snowman, but I finished the hole, I'd be like, hey, way to clean up with that 2-foot. If I hit a good drive, but I shanked my next one, it was always, hey, great drive. And I think I have my opinion on why that helped me accelerate quickly in the game of golf. But why does it benefit people to maybe focus more on what they're doing well and their strengths versus focusing more on what's not going right?
Yeah, so I'm torn on how to answer this. I agree with you that we need to highlight what's going well with somebody. 100%. Somebody comes off the golf course, and I have a lot of people, a lot of competitive golfers that I'll get text from tonight because it's when we're recording this. This is the summer where I have a lot of my clients are playing a lot of competitive golf. I will always ask 3 questions. What did you do well today? What did you learn? And what do we have to work on? Now
Yep.
that's after the round of golf. Now I'm
Yes.
always framing it what they did well. Okay. I agree on a smaller version when I do post-shot routines where I want to learn from a shot. I don't frame it exactly that way, but I do want somebody to, instead of being emotional, that's bad, I'm bad, it's that ball went somewhere. I wonder why.
Yep.
And if it's a great shot, hey, what led to that? Oh man, I was focused, Rick. I used a visualization where I saw the shot tracer in red, and I did this, and now we can anchor what was successful. Totally agree with.
Yes.
Then as they get more advanced with their awareness, I used to be somebody who was focused, but the emotional side that was poor after slamming clubs all the time, if I did not change that, I was never going to get better.
Yeah.
So we do need to have a balancing act of it. I agree with you. Most people are just the behavior is going to be negative based, but they don't
Yeah.
do anything with the negative side. That's
Yes.
bad.
Yes.
What'd you learn? But I like the framing of, hey, what did I do well? What's something I can be proud of? What's something I can repeat next time that helps me be in a calm state? I think
Yes.
those questions aren't asked enough either.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me it was just the walking to the next hole and be like, yeah, I could go repeat that again. That is, I'm leaving that hole going. Those are the things I'm building into my game, and the other stuff I will clean up. There was a piece that you just said there that inspired me to ask a question. It's kind of slipping from my mind now, but I had another one lined up, so we can go in that direction, which is leading up to the shot, right? One of the things in FlowCode talks about joyous anticipation, right? And another thing, you talk about gratitude. And
Yes.
again, I think for a lot of high performers, it's so cutthroat, it's so aggressive, it's this, that, and the other. But these emotions, these perspectives, they have a spiritual essence to them. And I know that I played my best college lacrosse from a spiritual state. Joyous anticipation, gratitude. Like, why is it beneficial for us to strategically integrate them into our life? Not it being a nice, fluffy thing. No, like this is the best thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah, so I'll answer a couple different ways. The one way is more that flow is actually a natural state we're in when we're at the age of 0 to 8. Okay, it's a natural state we're already in because we're playing. We're imaginative. We're creative. I tell the story all the time. My son, who's now almost 21 years old, was huge into Legos, and he's making these things. He's 5, 6 years old. Hey, Daddy, look at this spaceship I made. I was like, and he's like totally absorbed in it, right? I could yell across the house, Grant, come here. He would not hear me. No way. Why? He was in a flow state, completely absorbed, loved what he was doing, creative, imaginative, playful, childlike. We got away from that. Okay. So part of joyous anticipation is, man, I can't wait to hit this shot close. I can't wait to hit this shot and then trash talk to my buddies right afterwards, right? Now that's a different perspective instead of, oh crap, what if I mess up? What are they going to think? Da da da. Right? That's a fear. So we're getting away from our natural state. Okay. Now, gratitude, as you and I both know, is one of the, if not the most powerful emotion. It's one of the top, right? And you're right. It's not fluffy, this and that. But I have players who've now played golf for 10, 20, 30 years competitively, and you see them a little bit jagged. They're just like, let's just go play some golf. Like, no. Why are you playing? Has that changed? And a lot of it has changed, right? It's like, okay, but are we grateful for the opportunity to be able to perform? So quick story. I was working with a college player, And he called me up and he's down. Oh, Rick, I can't believe this is happening. And I go, oh, poor you. Where are you at again? Hawaii. I go, what resort you at? And I go, oh, poor you. You get to play for free with your college at this resort, right? But perspective is everything. And be grateful you get the opportunity. You may not be playing great, but you
Yep.
get to go play at a world-class resort in Hawaii for all. You know how many people would love to do that? So I throw gratitude as not just something you throw out there, but you're just like, wow, I am fortunate that I get this
Yes.
challenge. How about this? I'm fortunate I get to tee it up in the final group of this event. I'm
Yep.
fortunate that I feel nervous right now. That's a cool place to be. So I look at gratitude as you can write in your journal things you're grateful for. I use it a lot for the intention of what I'm about to do. What
Yes.
could I be grateful for this opportunity? And sometimes it's challenge. Okay, this is going to kick me in the butt, but I'm grateful that it's showing up right now.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's so great. I think uh, one of the examples I think I've given on recent episodes, a lot of players that we work with are in the summer recruiting phase, right? So they're playing in front of college coaches. Some of them, it's mostly for the first time. The first perspective is I have to play well. If I don't play perfect, all these things. And I just remind them, I go, hey, your job is to go show them how much fun you have playing lacrosse. Your job's actually to show them how grateful you are to be there. How's that make you feel? And they're like, oh, wow, I can do that. It feels like joyous anticipation. It feels like playing. It feels like being a kid. And I've also talked about, and a lot of people have, right? It's like, well, the goal of having fun is actually a really smart goal for enhancing performance because we're fun, we're more relaxed and things like that. So yeah, I agree. I think we're going in the right direction. I know if you're working with people, you're touching lives and helping them get back to a more joyous state. I have a framework that we teach, I think you'll enjoy, and it's all about optimism. Okay. It's called the BPO, the best possible outcome.
Love
And
it.
I created it before working with the team because I wanted to have an exercise in expansive thinking. I wanted to get them really thinking about how good things could get. And it worked really well for this one team. So I kept going with it. So I'm playing golf in San Diego. This is 2 years ago. And I'm having a bad stretch. And my buddy, he goes, hey, mate, self-talk. Let's go. Like you were just teaching this yesterday. And I go, you're right, my bad. And he goes, how about the BPO? Because the kids really liked it. And I said, great. I said, all right, BPO, I strike this one down the field. Boom, I do it. And I feel this shift, right? I'm going from fear to flow. Next one, I put this one, I get an eagle from 130, and I put it to like a foot. And I go, oh, dude, this is worth it. Best BPO, bird, get the bird. Next hole, same thing. I go par, I'm on a good stretch. And then I get to a par three, and I go, BPO is I get my second hole in one. He goes, dunk it. And I get my second ace right there. And the BPO legend lived on. And I went and worked with the kids later that day. And I said, hey, BPO, it happened. It works. But yeah, what are your thoughts? I got stickers on every journal I have and every phone case I have. It's subtle reminders to be in the state of optimism, catch myself when I'm in a fear state. Thoughts on optimism, thoughts on expansive thinking?
Well, optimism has definitely been a proven mindset for flow, by the way. So that's one. I think the expansive thinking goes a lot along with intentionality, right? Is I have plenty of people who are goal oriented, and that's fine. Honestly, I'll ask a client, "What's your goal for this tournament?" Well, Rick, to win. I go, great. So in order to win, how do you have to show up? And they go, what? Well, I got to hit a lot of greens. Like, oh, okay, I get that. That's a performance thing. How do you have to show up? Well, I've got to be focused. I got to be clear on what's in front of me. I got to be, and then it starts to lead more to what we're talking about is I need to focus on what I want. I need to focus on greatness. I need to focus on this awesome shot. I need to focus on, I can't wait to, right now we get into more behavioral goals or processes that lead to that. So goals are fine. I think you and I are more about intentionality of how do I show up that way? I mean, I can't, this is going to go dunk in, right? And you can't wait to now experience that. I think is very, very important for people to tie in their goals with a behavioral type of emotion or like joyous anticipation. Anticipation, I can't wait for this to happen instead of fear,
Yeah.
like, oh no, I'm retreating, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's the shift where mindset and your perception is your reality, all those type of things when you're doing affirmations and you have a visual trigger in your yardage book, or I had people write down on their glove maybe a word or an initial of something that changed their focus. We know focus changes your energy, which now changes performance. So I love it.
Yeah. I love that. That's great. Yeah. For me, whenever I do the BPO and I do it multiple times a day, actually pretty close to finishing up the book on it. I'm super excited about it.
Wonderful.
It's I always go with, I think you're gonna love this. I always lead with the BPO is that I live in a state of joy and gratitude and peace, and I'm clear-headed and I speak with enthusiasm, and then I start going and going, which I did today earlier. And I think now I might just use the word flow instead of just listing off, yeah, I'm deep, I'm at great peace and joyful and abundant and all that. I'm just like, yeah, the BPO is that I find myself in a state of flow, deeply absorbed in the present moment. And then from there, this is what we do. So I think flow is going to be integrated into my vocabulary, my software a little bit more after this conversation.
Sounds good. And you already have what we call triggers to do that. And you can label it whatever you want, but that's your optimal experience, right? And when we can tap into that more and know that you had an intention behind it, it just didn't magically happen. It's like, no, I did this, I did this, I did this. And guess what? My energy changed, right? And a lot with values. So one of my highest values is be of service. So yes. I want to be of service on this podcast. I want to be of service with my client that's going to be right after this, right? Is if I am of service, then pretty much I hate to say it, I got my outcome because I'm tapping into my value system there.
Yes.
And that's where I look at those best possible outcomes is how congruent was I to who I am is more important now. And that's what I've learned throughout being older now, than did I get the outcome that what I felt I wanted. Outcomes are important, everybody, but now it's like who showed up, and I'm more proud of being of service than I am if I won a tournament or something like that.
Love it. Well, I want to pull on your relationship with Collin, because young student athletes and everyone, when they hear someone who's had success at the highest level and they hear what they're doing, it is motivating. And I still will find videos of famous athletes or people I look up to, and they say, I'm practicing gratitude or I'm practicing optimism. I'm like, yes, I'm going to do it too. So I understand the importance of having these role models to look up to. So you've worked with Collin Morikawa since he was 8 years old. You've been of service to him, and I'm sure you've learned a lot from him as well. What are maybe some of these states that he had to work to get into that now have become more consistent traits? Or what mental skills, because I don't care how hard I work, Rick, I'm not gonna swing like him, right? No one is. So but maybe there are some mental skills that you can say, man, he really improved here, and anyone can be inspired to integrate this type of thinking into their game.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because I'm very much into modeling, right? So I want to learn from the best of the best and see what their recipe for success was. What ingredients do I need? Those type of things. Collin is interesting because I've been asked many times, when did you know he was going to be a great golfer? And I say when he was 12 years old, and people go, what do you mean? I go, well, he was extremely composed. He was extremely focused. He could manage his emotions, and he's 12 years old. I go, I know, because I've worked with a lot of physically gifted golfers, that was going to be the most challenging thing to coach. He already had that in him. Now, does it mean he's perfect? Of course not. Nobody is. But if you asked him, what are some of the things that maybe drive performance for him, is being competitive, being the best version of himself, being competitive, yes, winning, but it's also pushing it. He loves being in the final round, in the final group at a major. He loves the Ryder Cup. He loves those things. And he's never going to shy away from that. So, whether we call it, being comfortable in uncomfortable situations, which I know is a big thing that goes on social media all the time now. But I'd say he has that built in, is that he's always trying to grow. He's trying to grow as a player. When he wins 2 majors, in the first couple of years on tour, he doesn't just sit there. He goes, how can I make myself better? And so that, what I appreciate in him a lot. Sometimes we'll have those conversations of when he was 8, 10, 11, 12 years old, and what was that childlike person coming into him. That's when he plays his best golf too, is that creative side. And sometimes we have to be reminded of it, because stresses change and environments change. What I appreciate with him the most is the competitive side, with the amount of focus of being in the present moment, right? We don't see that with a lot of younger players as much. I mean, we certainly have more environmental distractions of a phone and quicker stimulus and stuff like that. So training that and being focused, being engaged in the moment, I believe is a superpower that can be certainly coached, But
Yes.
that's what I've been seeing as a differentiation from him than other players that I work with.
You said he loves being in the hunt on Sunday and being in the more pressure-filled situation. How much do the best performers that you work with talk about love? Do you find that love is something, and it might not be, but is love something that comes up in conversations with different performers that you work with and helping them get into a flow state? Do you find that those emotions and those experiences of love and flow are connected?
I think they are. I'm not sure if all the athletes would, if they, I don't want to answer it for any of my athletes, but if they say, I love the competition, how are they using the word love? I don't know. Okay. It might, I don't want to say it's a throwaway word like, I love that. But I really do believe it becomes part of them that the competition increases intensity in them. Their focus
Yep.
is there. And they literally, because we know the brainwave chemicals and hormones and all that stuff does make them change, makes them feel different. They love that experience. Okay. Tiger Woods loves being in the hunt. He loves competition because his inside is feeling different. So
Yes.
you start getting addicted
Yeah.
to how that makes you feel.
Yep.
Then maybe they tie in love with that. But I think
Sure.
slightly different than, oh, I love playing golf. It's like,
Yeah.
I love being in the hunt. I love my
Yeah.
heart going like that. That's how I think they use that word.
So more so like in a meaning and association sense. I love
Yeah.
it. That's good stuff. I have I don't know why I feel called to share this one. In high school when I played lacrosse, my perspective was I need to be the most intense individual on the field. And I would get penalties and I'd make mistakes. And then I would calm down. Thankfully, I just knew intuitively how to do that. And then the second, third, and fourth quarter played great. When I got to college, I changed my perspective and I began a little ritual where I would take a knee on the corner of the field before every practice and game. And I would have a conversation. All of my grandparents had passed on by then. So none of my grandparents ever saw me play lacrosse. And this thought hit me one day and I said, I'm playing so that they can watch me. They've never seen me play. They're watching me play. I'm playing for them. And I played really well for the rest of my career. And I thought about that every single practice and game. And my perspective was, I'm just playing for their enjoyment. And my career from there on felt like a flow state, much more than anything else. And I look back, I had some good self-talk. I had some really good routines and goals. Never knew it until I went back and studied it. But how much of this, to me, if you said, how do you approach the game? I'd say spiritual, right? How much of like the spirituality and flow, like what's this connection that I'm pulling on?
Well, I think this is going to be for our episode 2 when we do in the future. I think spirituality and stuff. I think as I've gotten older, I'm very agreeable with you. I think these experiences become mystical. They become more than just hitting a golf shot or more than just presenting in front of people. So I agree with that. I think it's a tough ask at first with a relationship with a coaching client to go that route. But I do want them to, and part of like assessments I do is like, tell me about a time you were in a flow state. Now they light up. Oh, Rick, you should see it was so effortless. It was so this. And you go, okay, great. You've been there. Is there anything we can learn from? You just told me a trigger. I kneel down. I connect, right? You've now given me a routine that helps you get into a certain state. Awesome. I don't have to teach you that. You've already experienced it. So if people can tap into those times that were mystical, that were flow, that were spiritual, and put a little more substance to it, it's like you actually created that. It wasn't something magically that just happened. I think we empower them on that. If you don't mind, I'm going to answer the question slightly different on something else you said, and I'm taking this for my own thing, is personality styles. And this is for those juniors out there, those youth. So in my era, Tiger Woods is the greatest player to ever play. He's done more for the game of golf popularity than anybody ever. People watch him and go, wow, he's dominant. In order to be dominant, I need to be like Tiger. That makes sense rationally.
Yes.
But everybody's different. And I've seen players at all of these highest levels have many different personality styles. Okay. I thought, because I came from football background, I'm supposed to be tough on the golf course. I'm supposed to get completely opposite of how I think I really am now, which is I joke around a lot. I relax. I'm not, and I actually play better golf now than sometimes I did when I was in college. And yet my physical skills have gotten lower, right? They're not as good. but I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. Oh, I got to be intense. I got to be this. And that was a stress on me. And I didn't enjoy the game. Okay. But I don't care what sport you're playing, you're going to see people who are, yes, they're very dominant. They're very intense. You have some people who are playful and their personalities all over the place. Be who you are, can play great. Okay. Let's not always try to be somebody we're not. Now, we can learn from others. Don't get me wrong. But me trying to be like Tiger Woods is counterproductive, if that makes sense. So when you said that I got to be like this, and then you kind of went to college, you kind of like, but if I do here and I tap into you were probably a different personality that you took out there too, right?
Yes, absolutely. I was a much more calm and intentional, relaxed leader and player, and it was much more joyful. And I have no regrets about my playing experience. I think there was some off-field leadership things that I learned I could have communicated better. I do look back, but man, on the field, no, that was really it. And now, Rick, just so you know, I will be on the golf course in a few days, and I'm going to take a knee on the tee box. And I'm going to connect to my ancestors, and I'm going to get really in the flow. My buddy's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Listen to the episode in a few weeks. You'll find out." This is great. I do want to respect your time, and this has been incredible, and I've learned so much. And I'm sure every person that listens to this or watches this will also be positively impacted. I'm curious. Last question about the book. What are you working on now? What's next from you?
Yeah, I'm writing another book right now. Probably about 12 months away. It's halfway done. I don't want to give too many details, but
Sure.
it's basically it revolves around golf, mental game, but it's using definitely golf as the metaphor for life and
Love it.
personal development and stuff like
Perfect.
that. So we'll be talking
Great.
a lot about some flow concepts and triggers and stuff like that along this journey that we're all on. So
I can't wait. I can't wait to read it, and I hope we connect before then. I know that I'm going to go on FlowCode and take some of those courses for myself, my own personal development, my professional development, and I would encourage everybody else to check out Rick on all of his pages and FlowCode Academy and all amazing things. Rick, I'm so grateful. I'm going to be in a state of joyous anticipation and flow for the rest of my days. This was incredible. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm grateful you reached out to me and that we had this wonderful conversation. And I'm sure there's ways we're going to connect in the future.
I hope so. Have a good one, my friend.